Hi, it's Laura at Sheer Passion again. I don't know who's watching, but I'm so excited to do tonight's video because it's about something that has been the last 32 years of my life. So, a lot of you actually in this area know that nutrition is a huge issue in our culture and that it was a huge issue in my own family. And the reason that I chose to talk to us about nutrition tonight and taking care of our bodies is because how does that actually deal with everyday life, and why is that such an important subject? It's not a subject that we like to talk about because it leads into things like self-confidence and understanding the brain, making good choices, and then also our sexuality, because we idealize sexuality being sexy. So I find this to be one of the best subjects because it leads into how we feel about our sexuality, which is my favorite subject. And that's to empower us to understand why God designed us and how important it is to face that. This is the beginning of the school year. We are day 2 into the school year for 2015. And it brings back all of those memories. All of those memories flood back to me as I've been talking to the teens in this area, giving them their haircuts. Let me say this again. It's Sheer Passion, SheerPassion. That's my YouTube. And I'm so grateful that you plugged in. Please share this video with our teens and the young people and maybe some parents that you know that just need to hear this encouragement. I will start with myself. My parents, unfortunately, had not been given the right gifts or tools to understand food. And food is our stronghold. Food is our addiction. So if we have an issue or if we have something that we can't reconcile with God, we go to food. If we have chores that need to be done but we were tired, we go to food. And if it was time to eat, we would choose the wrong foods. By the age of 16, I was tapping out at 285 pounds. And what that meant for me as a young person, I remember in grade school, I was called all kinds of horrible names. 6th grade out here years ago was in a elementary school, kindergarten through 6th grade. Now it's 6th grade through 8th grade, 9th grade through 12th. So it's a little different now because 6th graders are at the bottom, whereas I was at the top of the food chain then, and I was a very chubby girl. Imagine what that did for me, a chubby girl. It wasn't easy. Not only that, I've always been this extroverted. I understood how difficult it was to push into the desk. I understood how difficult it was to keep up at gym class, how difficult it was to not think about food. I was thinking about food every hour of the day. I felt like you could look at my body and tell, you definitely don't need to be eating, so what's the problem? I didn't know then. I had no idea what it was that was constantly stirring with me. And when I graduated 6th grade and went to a very large high school out here, being at the bottom of the food chain again, we drove about 8 minutes into school, but all of the schools in the surrounding area came to the high school. So I was seeing girls that were actually my size and larger. Thank the Lord God Almighty. I'm not the fattest girl in school. Oh my gosh, if that is like the most disgusting thought ever, I'm not the fattest girl in school, right? Instead of, she must be hurting like I am. She must be struggling like I am. What is the problem? Children don't go to school asking those questions, parents. We don't actually go and look at the girl who looks like us and say to her, what is wrong with us? Is something wrong? Can we get help? Yeah, we can get help. It needed to be at home. So we get to school and we feel very inadequate sexually because the guys are choosing women. We also recognize we were choosing guys. I'm not ashamed about that. That's the process. That's something that's been given to us by God. We haven't talked to our children about sex either. So not only have we sent them to school, now we recognize that this inability to eat right also affects our sexuality. It's linked to everything. It's also linked to focus, and now we have all these issues: ADHD, Crohn's, diverticulitis, autism, the hyperactivity issue with anxiety versus depression. It's all linked to food. It's all linked to nutrition. That makes sense. We have to start figuring out these things. Why would it be linked to nutrition? Because every time you put something into your body and it goes into the cells and it goes into the brain is run by minerals. The brain is in charge of hormones. Hormones run the body. Hormones deal with weight. So we have men who are growing female breasts. We also have women who are very masculine. That's because it deals with the hormones. That's okay. It's just not that easy when it's your child or when it's you. And I understand that. That's why we need to talk about this subject. That's why we need to get it out there. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is it's really not that easy to just tell people to run it off or to choose more wisely. Why? Well, because it's linked to the brain again. So every time it was time to eat, I was choosing the salad line. Oh, I stacked it on there. Oh my God, I was so hungry by the time it was lunchtime. Then you had to find a seat. People don't want to sit with the fat kids. People feel obligated to point them out, that they're different or they're odd looking. You're right. We are. They are. They know that. They also are a person inside who can't necessarily change those issues. Why is that? Because that's linked to the brain. You can't stand up for yourself and speak yourself through something if you can't think logically. Where does that come from? Nutrition. And one of the things that I picked up on was I did like myself. I knew I was fat. You don't need to tell a fat person they're fat. We know. We can see our butt. We realize how hard it is to shimmy in some jeans. It doesn't actually change anything, or does it? It changes everything. So we have kids who are extremely thin because of their metabolism. We have kids that are extremely heavy. And we are understanding that it is coming from sugar. Sugar wouldn't be such an issue if we didn't have triggers in our society to push us towards something like an addiction. And when we're children, and you realize that I was heavy, I'm not heavy anymore. No, and I've had the privilege to really understand that I did like myself in high school. I absolutely did. And I did know I was heavy. I did. And I knew that I couldn't change that while I was in that environment. God had huge things for me. As I was pushing that off and refusing to be what the status quo was inside of my own family structure, I go back to I was told at 18 if I didn't want to listen to the curfew, I had to get out. That was when I realized I wasn't taking care of my body. And if we jump ahead and I graduate high school and I go to beauty school, I'm still heavy. I was one of the heaviest people in my beauty school. And it was very tough. I'm sorry, but if you're not beautiful when you tell people that you're going to beauty school, good luck. I wasn't the girl that you went to braid hair. I wasn't the girl that you went to because she had all the boyfriends. No, not at all. Absolutely not at all. What changed is I recognized when I was asked what I was going to do for a living, I thought, you know what? There is more to this life than people actually see. And I'm going to be a hairstylist because I'm going to make you look beautiful, which in turn will help you feel beautiful. And I'm going to tell you that you are beautiful so you can start to be beautiful. And that is how I did it, one haircut at a time. I kept developing these new ways of seeing myself and how I wanted to treat people and how I wanted people to treat themselves. But when I was standing behind that chair, the first year that I had graduated, I actually did have a job. So at 18, I do start cutting hair. And it's different because you're not fully booked. You're waiting for calls to come in. So you do the towels and you're doing this for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. And you do get hungry. And I did realize that I needed to pack food. I did need to take food. But my problem was I thought if I just starved my body, I would start to etch out the bone structure and the muscle tissue because I wasn't eating. So my body would live off of the stored fat. That is one of the biggest lies of our culture, is that if we drain our fuel, that we'll actually get thinner. Oh, but I was surely going to fit it in them pants the next day. Yes, I was. Absolutely. I did so many towels, I had to have lost a pound. Not only that, when you go to starving yourself, you then want food. Food, feed me. That's all I could think of was food. So in between cutting hair, it was food, 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 food. All I wanted was to stop that constant spiral. I was on this up and down roller coaster. I was turning inside out inside my head. I couldn't get women to talk to me. The women that I worked with starved themselves. They were miserable, absolutely miserable, hunched over, just constantly upset. And that's the faces they give when they're cutting hair. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be that at all. How do I stay away from this? That was my family. My family couldn't see their feet. Then my coworkers, they didn't want to look at their feet. I was going crazy. I saw us all being amazing and beautiful and special and important individuals, unique, designed with a purpose. I still see those things. Why are we not acting like it? Well, there's a really big issue. Let me explain. If you don't choose to see this as the temple that God has given you, you will not make good choices in food. And as you develop as a young teen and you are around your peer group and you don't have the ability to look in the mirror and to see the woman or the man that God has designed, you have absolutely no ability to stand up for who you are in this culture, and they will devour you. And when you go home, either the parents are fanatic about weight loss and eating right, that food has become a demon. You don't even want to think about it because you have to count your calories, or it's not talked about at all. Why are we in these two extremes? Because we haven't gotten honest about what nutrition is. In this culture, we are run on agriculture. It's $1 billion industry in this United States. The government now controls the seeds. Why is it that organic food costs more than the McDonald's food? Because McDonald's isn't food. It's the most expensive fiber you will ever eat. The minute you put it past your lips, you are literally poisoning yourself. That's not to make fun of McDonald's. McDonald's could have had the most beautiful organic chain out there, and people would still need to eat at least 3 meals a day. McDonald's would not be out of business. They would be the most beautiful organic business that existed. Their franchise would have flourished and blessed the people from here to China. They chose to make foods that take while they take your money. The problem with all of the nutrition is that people do not understand the simple answer to choosing something better to put in your vessel, to feed you at the cellular level. To eat to live is better than to live to eat. I've been there, folks. Oh gosh, I just talked to my stepson tonight about his decisions that he made the second day of school for lunch. My eyes twitched. I tell him, really? My eyes twitching after you told me what you chose for lunch. And then I laugh and I say, well, that's the thing. You really do have to make the decision. You really do have to see self-love. Why is it that parents can't teach their children everything? Well, not only do you need to be an example, you also have to give them the other side. You have to tell them why you do those things. I tell all of my clients why I choose to eat organically. And please, I can't take all the credit. Let me just tell you, there are clients out there who planted seeds in me year after year after year, who did not give up on me, who did not think that I wasn't listening and that I wasn't important enough to share with me why they ate organically or why they were vegan or I love vegans. Oh yeah, they get picked on all the time because when somebody goes so far to say there's foods that they will never eat based on the way that the animal is treated, or the milk or the eggs are pasteurized once the animal is treated poorly, you get the rogue people out of here that are like, those are them tree huggers. They're crazy. That's because they are so far removed from how amazing our temple is, and that person's so far right and says our temple is so important and so is theirs, that I will put nothing past my lips that takes away from the animal or the plant that gave it to me. So we have people who have absolutely no respect for life. And then we got the people who are so far right, you just don't understand. I get it. It's not really that easy, especially in a world where you don't really believe if people are thin, what are they doing to stay that way? And you really do feel like this just is your burden. Lie. That is a lie you tell yourself so you don't have to make a change. Why is this so important? Because as I became an adult woman who needed to stand behind that chair and serve you in this community, had I not had a thought process to gain work ethic and a thought process to spend my money wisely or to stay away from credit cards, a thought process to not be pushed into drugs, not to be pushed into alcohol, not to be pushed into premarital sex. That did happen later down the road. That was my kryptonite. but not while I was in high school. And then I ended up getting married, and how difficult it is to be in a relationship when there's food choices involved every day and the adults do not agree on what should go in the temple versus what should be eaten at the holidays versus what should be bought at the store. How quickly food can become such an issue in our families. It's really not that easy, because instead of seeing us all having this beautiful temple and having this need to eat, it's a burden. What I want, when I say I want it now. And we don't realize how difficult it is to grow food, because food petitions you to work the land, the sweat of the brow, and the sun, and understanding what happens to then nourish us so that we can think very clearly. I've told Joshua 1,000 times most people cannot keep up with me, because in a conversation I will debate them down to the very last fiber of the issue, and they usually get angry. That's because they can't think through things. They want things to work a certain way, but they can't really think through them. I can usually talk circles around people. I find no value in that. I tell my clients all the time, we are not in competition with one another. We are living in a community where if everyone was healthy and wealthy and wise, this world would have better jobs, better free time, and better relationships to then change the world one town at a time. We would not be out of jobs. We would have new jobs. We would have the job to empower the children who are coming to understand how we work the land, why we work the land, why we take respite, why we go to bed at night, why we do not drink alcohol until wee hours, and why we don't eat sugar by the boatloads, and why we don't put extra salt in our foods. We would be working around the clock to empower the new ones that come up through to really understand who we are today. Some of the things that I want to speak on is the revival of the world. We need to start being the change that we want to see. Please do not look at me here and think that I did not have a very difficult time. I have extra skin on my arms. I have extra skin on my stomach. I have extra skin on the inner part of my thighs. I had stretched my body so far beyond its comfort zones when I was a young girl. The age of 16, tapping out at 285 pounds. What does that do to my skin? I've spent countless years doing everything I can, from lymphatic drainage to dry brushing, essential oils, massage, yoga, the sauna, swimming, rubbing oatmeal on it, praying to Jesus to cut it off by the time I wake up. But you know what it is? It's a great reminder that our bodies are not capable of not having scars to remind us of where not to go. I had gone to countless years of counseling for food addiction, and my food addiction had been learned as a young child. It's very unfortunate that my family did not follow me in this, because they still struggle on a daily basis to make good choices. That's okay, that's their choice. I realized that I couldn't save anybody but myself, and the example to eat well is just that. Just like God had written the Bible, people need to choose to want to follow him and heed his word, and to understand that he put that book out there because he loves us. He does recognize if we make different choices, we will have different outcomes. And it's not to tell people they're fat to get to the gym or to stop eating. It was to say, if you choose that, I will show you how that'll bless you and your family and others. In this world, we constantly want it yesterday. I'm in that same boat. I'm no different than that. I want to empower us to understand that every day that we take a step into the next day without understanding that God has designed this temple with a purpose and a plan, if we can't even so much as see our body as a car, we get into a car and we require fluids and gas and brakes and a steering wheel and a seat and a seat belt, windshield wiper fluid. We do all of these things in a car, but we don't do the same thing for our body. And the fuel for our body is food. And then the outside of our body and the way that we take care of our body is to make it run efficiently so that we can have the best self-confidence. When we run into other people, we can tell them, I understand how difficult it is. It requires understanding the moment that you get up. You teenagers need to eat breakfast before you go to school. pack something in your bag in between classes if you are hungry before lunch. At lunch, get as much as you can in fruits and vegetables and lean meats and good carbs, not refined carbs, good carbs. We can talk about that later. And then you will eat as much as you can during that lunch to fuel you until you get home from school. When you get home from school, eat again. We are keeping our bodies stoked so that our metabolism runs at its best. I have had such difficult years over the last 16 years, constantly having my hands busy and my mouth going at my job. I know how difficult this is. I'm either eating or I'm talking. And if I'm drinking, then I have to pee, which means I'm going to have to leave the client. I have one of the most difficult, if not just like sales, I'm in sales all day long while my hands are busy. So I have to decide, is my body more important or is yours? Well, if I don't take care of my body, I won't be around for any length of time to take care of yours. So I've been known to, I pack everything. Not only do I go buy food and I save money on food, I then spend time packing my food so I have no excuse because I took this vessel to work. People go to work and don't pack food because we're doing the same thing. I'll make it. I'll be fine. I'm not going to be starving. You got to be kidding me. Absolutely. You're hungry before you get out of the driveway. It is what it is. The difference is I told myself I'm not going to go to work and bitch and moan and complain because God has given me a brain. Now, over the years, as I've been involved in companies and supplement companies and researching and going to the gym, and yes, I've been one of those people that has seen the people walk into the gym and gain the weight over the years. They're not thinner. They're miserable. You can look at it on their face. I find it empowering to go to the gym. I find it empowering to pack my lunch. I know that I care about my body and I care about myself and I care about everyone that I run into. So I'm not going to not feed my body. I'm not going to be ashamed that God made me a human woman. I need to eat. I need to drink. It needs to be water. And over the years, I used to drink more coffee, and then I stopped that. I took sodas away 16 years ago. I just got rid of them completely. Then I had gone to coffee instead. I wanted to fight that, but I recognized how difficult it was to stand up all those hours during the day. Now I drink mineral supplements instead of 2 cups of coffee a day. I drink 1 cup at 7 o'clock in the morning. I work out, I walk, I go to the gym. But I also recognize the differences when people come to get a haircut. And they gain weight and they gain weight and they gain weight. I have literally watched people incapable of touching their own feet, which means I know everything it touches in their life. They're not sexually active. They're not cleaning their homes. They're not cleaning their bodies. They're not taking care of the outside of their house. They're not cleaning out their cars. We have companies that come out and take care of our lawn because we can't take care of it. We have people who take care of our cars because we can't get in it. We don't go out on the weekends because we're too tired. We end up shopping or going to restaurants. Have you noticed that everyone has energy if you said restaurant? Oh, I'm in. It's amazing how you would be ready for bed, but if somebody says they're going out, you're out. Because there is an addiction. There is an addiction in our culture to not understand food matters. Everything we eat, everything we put in this body matters. Over the last 16 years, as I've looked in the mirror or the springtime has come and I knew bathing suit weather was going to come. Oh, it's easy to pick on the fat girl who it is. It's easy to pick on the girl who shows you her extra skin. I get it. The difference is this empowers me. This is who I am. I'm Laura, who used to be 285 pounds, who's here to tell you that it absolutely matters that I got right with myself. Because every time you come in contact with me, I'm my best me so that you can be ready. One of the things that food does is allow you to love yourself and to nourish yourself. God didn't make it boring, though. We have pleasure sensories, the tongue and the nose. Everything works together, and the warmth in our bellies and the satiety that comes into eating correctly. These are things that just make life amazing. The difference between a piece of cheesecake versus a piece of celery and hummus. They do 2 different things to your tongue. I love celery and hummus. Celery is one of my favorite vegetables, but we used to talk about it being like the food. It took me a long time to change my taste buds. It took me a long time to change my thinking. Because even when I was in the counselor's office and I recognized that food controlled me, why is it when I went home, I wasn't capable of fighting it? It's not that easy. Because you can't turn the triggers off in this world that frustrate you. Your parents being divorced, you not being in the job that you want, your husband not understanding you, you not feeling beautiful. Maybe your family's falling apart. Maybe your children are into drugs, or you're afraid they're sexually active. Whatever it is. Not only that, anxiety and depression come in because when we don't eat correctly, anxiety and depression are linked to the brain not getting what it needs. So you suffer from either one of them. I've learned to talk to anxiety. You can do whatever you want. As long as God is not back, I'm going in. I don't care if I have hives on my chest. I don't care if I have a grapefruit in my throat, because a lot of that is talking through this. Anxiety and depression get in your way because they don't want you to make good choices. Has anybody ever recognized how quickly anxiety and depression come in when it really counts? Don't you think that the devil knew how to get the American family, how to get the American people? When we drink Diet Coke and we eat processed foods, what is incapable of being done? The extra load of laundry, the conversation you needed to have with your child, cleaning the house, feeling better the next day, taking antacid tablets, taking laxatives, taking sleeping pills, taking pills to go to work, taking pills to make it through work, taking pills for your osteoarthritis, taking pills for your Crohn's, taking pills for your diverticulitis. The problem is the pharmaceutical companies it should have had its time. It should have had its moment, but it's used as a crutch. Drugs take away the body's ability to understand the warning signs and the red flags that something is wrong. When you go to the doctor, you know your two choices. You're a fool when you walk through that door if you think they're going to tell you anything different from a drug and a surgery. Either that, or they're going to tell you that you should have chosen more wisely, so you wouldn't have had to waddle in here. I think doctors would be the most amazing job in the world if, when somebody had been hit by a tractor trailer, or all children need to be taught how the body works from the inside out, so we had such respect for one another, they would have a job until their life literally ceased to exist, because each new child that comes up, this doctor would be spending time with them saying, I studied the body, I studied the structure, this is who we are. And instead of making pharmaceutical drugs that took away our ability to be accountable to the choices that we make, we'd have new jobs to change the world. I'm grateful for plastic surgeons because I'm going to get this skin dealt with. I have had an amazing journey with my husband now. And one of the things that we have been going through is that when we met, he was heavier and he was changing his life. And I knew what he was going to look like. My husband is so handsome, it's ridiculous. And as he has discovered who he is underneath all of that extra skin, to see how handsome he is, when he looks in the mirror, he sees how handsome he is. You do have to understand that he comes at me very differently, and he's capable of taking I have such a bold personality, and when I tell him something's wrong, something's off, we need to change this, this isn't right, this isn't logical, there has to be a lie. He's capable of hearing me. He hears me. He understands how I think. He tells me all the time, your brain is fascinating to me, because he says you never turn it off. You're constantly thinking. You're constantly in control. And that's one of the things that I wanted to tell you. Why can I do that? I have been up since 7 o'clock this morning. We walked for over an hour and a half. I worked for 10 hours today. I cleaned my house. We've already made dinner, and I'm doing my video. And you can see, this is what I'm like during the day. This is me. This is my skin. This is who I am because of how I feed my body, how I feed my family's body, how I choose and what I put in my body, and when I go to bed, and what I put on my skin to wash my body. It does matter. Our bloodstream is the thing that we cannot see, that runs throughout our veins and runs everything. But the problem is, since we cannot see it, we have absolutely no responsibility to understand what it does here. What it does here. It changes everything. In relationships and husbands and wives, if a wife does not work, and a wife does not have an income, and a wife does not have a brain, she will never be able to exist inside of that because she doesn't have anything to barter with. In this culture, if you do not work and you do not bring in an income and you do not have your self-confidence and you do not know why you exist, you will not make it in a family. You cannot be a mom if you weren't a you. You cannot tell your child not to do that if you have no idea why she's choosing that. You'd have to understand yourself and the difference between the choices that you made versus somebody else, versus that kid, versus that neighbor, before you tell someone not to do something. How do you do that? You have to feed your temple. You have to literally feed your temple. Not only do you have to choose wise food, you then have to sit with yourself and think through, why do I do what I do? You need to start being accountable to the choices, and can you be better, and should you be better? When you're a child, that comes from your parents. And if you didn't get that, it can come now. It can come from someone like myself who says, you know what, you can do this. Why can you do this? Because God has designed you with such a great plan in mind and with such a purpose that the moment that you ask Him to give you strength to face these inadequacies in your own life, you can do that. You can read scripture. You can go to counseling. You can go to church. You can worship God. You can be a better person. But you're going to have to get up and you're going to have to participate. And one of those things is understanding that everything I do in my life now, I do because I recognize that it deals with Laura. Do you have to go to the gym to be a good person? No, you don't have to go to the gym to be a good person. It's just one of the ways that you can stay in shape. It's one of the ways it is it's a better counseling for me. Not only is my gym membership so affordable, $19 a month for everything that it offers, I'm there 3 times to 4 times a week, consistently every week, 12 months out of the year. It's amazing what it does for this body. If I have stress, if I have anger, if I have sadness, I have joy, it rids all of the bad and it extends all of the good. That's what it does. So if I'm having an issue, by the time I'm done with the gym, I can deal with the whole world. I can take them. It'll be fine. Before I get there, I'm like, I need to run. And before you know it, you're done. You can breathe. You go home. You have that extra energy. Why? It's the craziest thing. You give energy, you get energy. You think you don't have any energy, so you go home and you sit down because you'll get energy at that point. Wrong. That's not how you get energy. You have to go give it to get it. Why? Because it leads back to the garden. We need to start paying attention to the things that we do to our bodies and the things that we put in our bodies and how we deal with those things, which means organic farming, better treatment of animals, and better treatment of plants in agriculture. If we don't start understanding that, that is literally how we fuel our bodies, just like how we fuel our cars with gasoline. We fuel our bodies with nutrition. You cannot run the brain to run you, to be a wife, to be a sister, to be a coworker, to be a boss, to be a neighbor, to be a nurse, to be a doctor, brother, sister, husband, teacher. I'm sorry. We cannot do those things until we understand who we are. Strip all of the titles away and give a female and a male body to people. That's it. This is your temple. You must take care of it. You must understand how it operates and how you interact with the community around you. And if you choose not to be your best, what happens? We can't be our best. We can't think clearly, and we can't be better tomorrow if we don't stop the food addictions. It's not just me telling you. You will have to get a counselor, somebody that you trust. You'll have to start telling the truth, what your triggers are, what sets you off, what pushes you to food. You'll have to start asking the questions as to why you don't eat breakfast and why you don't eat lunch, and that's not something you can just start doing the very next day. It's like every addiction out there. Food addiction is not talked about in this culture because we all have issues with it. And because it's driving the issue of going to the grocery store and paying too much money for it versus it not being in the house, it's not what I wanted anyway and it requires me to cook it, so I'm going out. There's lots of things that we need to talk about. There's lots of different facets of it. The gym versus taking a walk versus yoga versus swimming versus meditation versus breathing versus sleeping. There are all these things that we need to take into consideration when we're thinking healthy. And the problem is the boob tube in our culture has taken complacency and it's made it worse. So instead of seeing the beautiful sun outside, people are still sitting inside because it's cooler inside than it is outside. We make these poor decisions instead of understanding that we could take a water bottle and take a walk and walk our animals and take care of our animals. We can do this. I have done this for the last 16 years. It has not been difficult. I have been late to family get-togethers, or I have said I need to leave early because of taking care of my own body. I understand that the world will not go with you. You won't have somebody who will say, I'll go with you. It'll be difficult every week to go. These are things that are not easy. I'm not telling you that this isn't hard. I'm telling you this is one of the hardest things you will ever do. If you do not face your own insecurities and your own self-worth and your own self-confidence, this will lead trouble in your sexual life. You will not be able to be sexual in a way that is healthy for you. You will then dive more into narcotics or alcohol or wine to manipulate how your body actually feels or how you feel being naked. I understand it. And then the problem is then you will even take more damage at your own body because you know something's wrong, because you can't be sexually active and you can't look in the mirror at yourself. Join the rest of us. We're all on that same journey. There's a reason. Because God is in control. And we have walked away from that in this culture. And I am telling you, we need to get right with God because He does matter and He is the best choice. And until we start speaking up and telling the truth in this culture, it's going to be very difficult for us to figure out, where do we begin? We begin here. We begin at oneself. I don't care what age you are. If you're watching this video, just recognize there are days where I cried myself to sleep. There are days where I refuse to cry. There are days where I said, I don't care how difficult it is and I don't care who doesn't come with me, I'm going. Do you know how difficult it is for a girl in a very small town to stand up against the norm? You're looking at her. I do it every day. It's not easy, but I'm telling you now so that I can empower you to make those changes. Tether yourself to the Holy Spirit, cry out to God and ask Him to help you, and then run into people like me, and I will give you an encouraging word when I see you. It's so wonderful to share this with you. This is such an amazing subject. It's not easy to accept, but we need to change this. We need to change this for us. We need to change this for our children. Let's do it. Thanks, guys. See you next week.